Good morning.
Good morning.
Just know I arrived back in town at 2 a.m. this morning, delays out of Dallas, Fort Worth. Ooh, I could cuss. Dallas is so, ooh. Ooh. You're going to hear the word water a lot today. It might get on your nerves because some people just don't like that level of repetition, so I'm just letting you know to manage yourself. I'm going to say water into wine so many times. What other updates do I have about life today? You all got me in trouble today because my body feels like it flew the plane like the Flintstones car, and like I was the one rotating my legs, and apparently I was told that if I needed support, I had support, and I could have preached from home and done a variety of things, but I chose to be here because I missed your faces. So I got a good long lecture on 35 this morning as I felt like a Formula One racer who left the house at 10:15 and still got here on time. So those are all the updates and all of the things. I'm so glad we learned about the chaos theory double pendulum, because I would have stopped the sermon to ask what that was, because not knowing was bothering my sensibilities. So thank you. And just in case you run out of storage, I too am available to take it home. And I need to know later so I don't make anyone jealous if the rule means I can't touch it either. But don't tell me now, because I don't want anyone who's not allowed to touch it to be jealous. I don't use pastor privilege often, but I will call in a favor if I must. You hear that, God, right? So today, I am here. Last week was super busy. On Monday, our chief customer officer, her name is Lacey, and my supervisor, whose name is Liz, she's the VP of the department, messaged me and said, "Do you have plans on Friday?" And I'm like, "I work here. What other plan but work do we have?" And I was like, ooh, end of quarter really messed up their brains. They are having a breakdown. I wonder, do we have resources? And I'm like, yeah, I'll be at work on Friday. And they were like, great, book a ticket to Austin to arrive here on Thursday, and then you can leave on Saturday. We're going to have an offsite and figure out how to kind of address a lot of pain points we've been having in our department. I was cool, calm, and collected on the outside. I was like, yeah, let me call the agent. We'll book that. But inside, the voice of impostorina began to rise. On the inside, it was like the duck trying to stay above water. I'm like, God, why are they asking me? I am but like the spies. I am but a grasshopper. What are they asking me to do? What am I bringing to the table? But I went. I arrived on Thursday. We had a wonderful hangout. Ingrid called me after and asked, how many of the things you've put together, because even in the chat with the 5 people who were going, I told them, my name is Quineris, the PM, first of my name. Have your agenda items to me. What do we say to those with excuses? Not today. So I had 21 slides, a beautiful deck of all of our ideas to change things. And Ingrid asked, well, how many do you think you'll get through? There were 10 total. I said, 50%, 5 of 10. That felt good. Half, good odds. And of course, for my dear wife, who again lectured me this morning, it was clearly not enough. She said, Ingrid has always called me her Maserati girl. I told her as a Mennonite pastor, I cannot drive a Maserati. My Audi is already too much. Don't have me out here not looking humble, okay? But she's always called me her Maserati girl. And she said, you are a Maserati girl, but you're acting like you got the confidence of a Pinto. And I was like, amen, that's fine. Because I was happy with my 5 of 10. It managed my disappointment. It managed the feeling of rejection. If someone said my idea is bad, which I have a really hard time processing, that's the human in me. We're from the dust, remember. And I was all shook up. So that night, I got home and I began to ponder this 5 of 10. A couple weeks ago, I preached imagination, and that tried to crop back up. And I was like, no, Lord, not right now. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to imagine it. I pushed it right on down. And I know, as your pastor, you think I always listen to myself and Jesus. I do not. I am, again, that dust. We're made the same. And so I was like, I don't want to think about imagination. I'm good. 510, it works. And I felt really good about it. The next day, after 8 hours and 21 slides, we have finished rebuilding 2 whole departments, and 10 of 10 of what I asked for was approved. The COO was pleased. We had some other conversations about how that pleased and that value would be rewarded. We were at her house. We sat out at the pool. I met so many pets this week. A golden retriever named Lily who thought your whole purpose in life was to pet her. A big old black dog named Guts who wanted to be pet but didn't want to ask, and so he would just look at you, and then when you pet, he would run away. But it was a really good time. These things will benefit all of us. My direct reports that I have 20 people that report to me, our customers, and honestly me, because I have been outgunned and outmanned like Hamilton and George Washington in the play. That evening, Friday night, I felt the call back to imagination. I have not been able to shake it since I preached it. And it came back up. And I suppose God said, don't play with me again. You got me the first time, don't do it again. So I let myself ponder. And what came to mind was this. As we come to John's Gospel, many of us know it to be familiar. My prayer today is that you would do me a solid and listen to it with fresh ears. See what it offers us new. We've heard this account of Jesus turning water into wine since we were kids, some of us. We know the miracle's coming, and because we know where it's headed, we miss what actually was happening sometimes. Nobody knew what Jesus was going to do, not even Jesus. They only knew that at this wedding, the wine had run out. Now, you have to understand what weddings were during this time. It wasn't, oh, let me get the dress, I'm going to be a bridezilla, let me get the venue, we're going to walk down this aisle, we're going to have a 2-hour reception, and then we are going to go consummate, perhaps. I don't know what y'all be doing at your weddings, whatever. But back then it was different. The wedding feast often could last for days. They were celebrations where hospitality mattered, and running out of wine would have brought shame upon the family hosting. The issue wasn't, oh, we have run out of beverages, somebody go pick up some Dr. Pepper. The bigger problem that the family would be judged on their hospitality and their generosity and how they chose to honor those in attendance. Everyone in this room, they're eating, they're drinking, they're being merry, and then that tap runs out. At first glance, they're all looking at the same situation, but the reality is they're not all seeing the same thing. The servant sees the empty cups that need to be filled. The steward sees a celebration that is about to end in embarrassment. The guests don't know what's happening because they've been drinking. But Mary saw an opportunity that the main participant does not have any interest in participating in. I love in verse 3, she's like, hey, they ain't got no wine. And he says, woman, what they got to do with me? My time has not arrived yet. I've always appreciated Mary in this story because she seems completely unfazed by Jesus' response. She is a mama through and through. She doesn't argue or accept what he said. Her faith and imagination believes that what she sees is not where it ends. She turns to the servants and says, do what he tells you. It's in one of those moments that makes me smile because it feels familiar. It was her version of stop being a pinto. For her role in this, she got enough imagination to believe that there's other possibilities. What if Mary would have just stopped after Jesus said, what does got to do with me? I wonder how often our imagination stalls when we meet resistance. What if she allowed the moment of resistance to convince her there was nothing more to hope for, that hope and the buck stops there? I suspect many of us know exactly what that feels like, because that's often where our imagination starts to slip. We pray, the answer doesn't come right away. We share an idea and someone pushes back or raises their brow. Mary shows up with a confidence here that doesn't require her to be the person that carries it out. She doesn't have to take it to the finish line. She just had to do her part. I imagine that after she told the servants, do what he says, she turned back to her plate of figs and cheese and grapes, popped one of those big old biblical grapes into her mouth, and waited. I then hear Jesus with his faint child, "This is my mama asking me to do something I really don't feel like doing," sigh, as he turns to the servant, knowing that resistance was futile. Mary wasn't about to have it, because I believe she was that kind of mama, and says, "Just go fill the jars with water." If I had been one of those servants, I imagine I would have been like, "Lord, today I am losing my job. Let me go get this water. I know it's just water. That's lovely. Surely he knows it's just water. I am going to have to change my LinkedIn papyrus to open to work when I get home." But what I love about it is that we get affirmation that God begins with what you already have. Moses and a staff, David and his sling, the widow with a dram of oil, the boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish. I always want to say fishes, but it's fish. Again and again, God refuses to wait until people have extraordinary resources to do an extraordinary thing. God begins with ordinary things offered in faith. As the servants return with the jars filled to the brim with water, Jesus tells them to draw some and take it to the head waiter. And the servant who knew his job was over did, and what do you know? It was wine. There had been no flash of light, no lightning bolt from the sky, no grapes to stomp like Lucy and Ethel. That's my favorite. Oh, God. That one and the one where they're trying to eat the chocolates because the assembly line. Okay. Oh, sorry, back to this. Okay. There was no light. Bad Bunny wasn't there to give us the performance at the wedding halftime. Because they was long. You needed intermissions. Mary spoke. Jesus instructed. Servants filled. And when it was tasted, it was wine. I find it interesting that John never describes that moment between of transformation. Perhaps it's because it's not the point. The point is not how Jesus did it. The point is who Jesus is and the beauty of the ordinary. That becomes even clearer when the head waiter calls the bridegroom over and says, "You dog." He don't say that part, but I'm adding that in. "You dog. Everyone serves the good wine first and then the cheap wine after the guests have had enough to drink, but you saved the best until now." I added that part too. The only ones who knew what had happened were the ordinary people who carried the ordinary jars filled with ordinary water and witnessed extraordinary work. The hard thing is we are encouraged and perhaps conditioned to admire spectacular things. Charisma, uniqueness, nerve, talent. Influence and success, that was from Drag Race. I really tried hard not to put it in here, but all my intrusive thoughts won. We assume God works most powerfully when he's working with remarkable people. We're not surprised when someone we think highly of does something high. We're not surprised when people we think lowly of don't perform, which too carries a problem in and of itself for another sermon. But yet John begins, instead of this coming at the end of Jesus's remarkable run, he starts the public ministry here with a different picture. He calls this a sign, not only a miracle, because a sign points beyond itself. A sign shows you what's next, what direction to go in, or how to get to where you want to arrive. And in this sign, Jesus takes something so common that everyone overlooks it and transforms it into something that reveals God's glory. We don't get a step-by-step winemaking class. There's no winemaking for dummies. There's no formal ritual to get caught up in, and that makes it hard for me, because I love a good plan or a pattern. I be needing some blueprints sometimes. When I think about that and I apply it to my situation last week, in hindsight, I realized that 510 was not about me not being qualified at my job. It had nothing to do with could I do it. Was my idea good? It was my inner critic saying you are not going to get all these things because nothing meaningful can come from what you have. I had no bell, I had no whistle to wow the group. I was in my Crocs and my Breakfast Club t-shirt. I realized that I did not have an imposter problem. I was battling an imagination problem. My dream of doing well, being better, or being enough was arrested before I entered the room. I was looking at my laptop and missed Jesus in the jars. Here's another visual. Nothing made me happier but than getting this little bag today. What is this? Come on, people, what is this? Okay, good. Thank you. That's why I took it out. What are these? Okay. What is this? Okay. That is. All of you were wrong. He said it was the most beautiful scarf he's ever seen. That's true. No, but everybody's right. It is a scarf. That I did make it. I did. Thank you. Okay, we'll take a break. I fell in love with birds, and so they are all different birds. We have cardinals, we have a little raven, a woodpecker. So we have a scarf.
And how many years have you been knitting?
I've been knitting now for 2 years. I learned because I was making me feel like an outsider in craft group. I needed to have something I knew how to do. So I taught myself. So here we go. So we have a scarf, we have a skein of yarn, we have a needle. All those things correct. There's nothing extraordinary about any of the single items at first glance. The thing that's fascinating is quilting, crocheting, or any other fiber art. The thing I find fascinating about that is that someone who has never knit before may look and see this and is like, oh yeah, that's fine, that's a ball of yarn. What am I supposed to do with that? But a knitter or a craft worker will look at it and say, ooh, that's a scarf, that's a hat, that's a koozie. Isn't that, what is the thing that holds your drink called? Koozie. That's a koozie. We look at it and see something different. We look at it and see someone we love, their neck will be warm this winter. We look and we see a baby born into some harsh circumstances will have a blanket. The finished piece is not here. It's not visible. Our faith has not found form, but that doesn't mean that there's not something possible out of this. The imagination of the knitter allows them to see beyond what everyone else can see. And you have to constantly remind yourself to trust the process. Knitting and crocheting makes you question if you really know how to count. There are rows that start to curl and you do not know why. You have to pull out 4 inches of stitches and hope that you'll be able to pick it back up when you get to the end of that. If someone judged any of my projects halfway through, they might conclude that I and it was a waste of time, or that it may not be anything worthwhile. A knitter knows better. They understand that you can't judge a project from the middle, because the middle is not synonymous with the end. I wonder if that part is what Jesus is inviting us to see in Cana. You can look at them jars and see water, but he looked and saw possibility. Today, I just have one ask as I close. I want you to think about what ordinary thing you've been overlooking. What is your skein of yarn? What is your jar of water? Where have you buried your lens of possibility? It may be a gift that you've dismissed because it seems too small when all you see are the spectacles. It may be an opportunity you have talked yourself out of because the voice of the imposter convinced you that you don't have what it takes and it doesn't matter. God is inviting you to your jar, to pick up the water, to pick up your crochet hook, your yarn, and not to become someone else or wait until you have better resources. It's not about if your yarn is from a merino sheep named Jacques or if it is from the sales rack at Walmart. The yarn is the yarn. Today I ask you to bring the ordinary things you already carry. I don't ask for more than that. Bring them and place them into the hands of Christ, into the arms of God, and know that even the one who knitted you together has never lost sight of what you're becoming. The middle is not the end. We were not crafted in God's image and then the yarn clipped. We still hang on by a thread. The water was never the point. The yarn is not the point. The skein is not the finished work. God is still transforming. God is still knit one, purl one, us, right through and through. And even if you don't see it, even if you don't see or feel the fireworks or Bad Bunny isn't coming to your house at your door to celebrate your win, I'm sorry. I know some of you are disappointed in that. Even without the grand display, God is still bringing to completion the good work that she has begun in you. So maybe, like the widow was asked, the thing I ask of you today, this week, gather your jars. Gather them in faith, gather them with hope, and know that if all you have is what people say is just water, freely pour it in, because transformation is waiting.